Hey guys, today we want to talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect. And for you guys that don't know what it is, I'm going to read the definition. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a type of cognitive bias where people with little expertise or ability assume they have superior expertise or ability. This overestimation occurs as a result of the fact that they don't have enough knowledge to know they don't have enough knowledge. Now, I talk to a lot of people, and I get some pretty crazy calls, pretty crazy emails. And the biggest one I usually get is people arguing with me when I post about the 2 to 3K as the sweet spot budget. And that really is about the place where you want to be to live good. It's not excellent. And a lot of guys will tell you, man, 2 to 3K, they're having a hard time on that. Depending on where you live. If you live in some sections, Makati or BGC, you're not going to make it there on that. You need more than that, But if you live in the provinces or something like that, yeah, you can live on less because there's no place to go spend your money. In fact, you're probably just going to sit home most of the time and just go food shopping and do what you need to do. And some of that will probably go into your savings or whatever if you're on the 2 to 3K sweet spot budget. But every so often I'll do something telling people how you can survive on the lower budgets, but I wouldn't do it, and I tell people that because it's a disclaimer, because a lot of people really cannot do it. I had a gentleman telling me, Steve, he goes, Steve, let me tell you something. This is the way things go in the Philippines. I don't even think you know what you're talking about. I've lived here now for almost 7 years. I was here before that 7 years several times. I pretty much know from being around expats. We have our expat group. I've talked to tons of expats that live here. I know people down in Mindanao. I know people in Cebu. I know what they're living off of, and I know the costs. And as soon as I tell people it's very difficult to live on 1,000 or less, I always get these people, Steve, I'll bet you I can live on 600, or I can do this here. And they're telling me how they can do it. And they show me a budget sometimes, and it's like, dude, if you think you can live on that budget, you're a miracle worker. And I think part of it is the Dunning-Kruger effect. They think that they're smarter because they've watched a few vloggers or what have you that have shown these guys that are living on 500 or 400 a month or whatever. Some of these guys are beg, borrowing, and stealing to survive on that, and they just don't want to tell you. I've seen some of these people that are going around. They even asked me for cigarette money one time on Gcash. I've had people ask me for money on Gcash. There was one in particular guy. He went off to jail. He was bumming money all over the place in the Philippines. I mean, it happens quite often here, and they're going off of what these people live like and saying, hey, these guys can do it. Do you want to be, would you want to be a bum? You know what I mean? But the Dunning-Kruger effect is alive and well here. Almost any time I post something, you always get somebody going against you. And it just kind of proves that Dunning-Kruger effect. Most of my vlogs, I usually do a lot of research on, and people always question everything. They always say, hey, Steve, where did you find this? Where did you get that? Where did you do this here? It's like, I read. Okay? I don't remember where everything came from. I read a lot of stuff in the course of a day. I read a lot of Google News. I read a lot of, everybody says, well, Steve, you must read Fox News. You must be watching Fox. And I don't have Fox News. We don't get it here. I wish I could get it here for that matter. I like watching different news agencies. And I don't think Fox is as bad as people say. I just don't. I usually like their commentaries. They had both. They used to have the Hannity and Combs, which they had the left and they had the right, and you could get a good balanced view of what you wanted to learn about. Anyway, everybody always has something to say about like CNN or whatever. But anyway, to get back to this, everybody is an armchair philosopher, accountant, or know-it-all. They really are. And I'm not saying I'm not in some respects too. All of us tend to think that we're smarter in some things than we really, really are. And then come to find out when we go to do it, we really aren't. And When I read about this Dunning-Kruger effect, I saved the thing so it would remind me to do a video on it, because it was just something that really touches on a lot. It really hones in on a lot of people in the Philippines. I've seen guys come over here, living here for 3 to 6 months, starting up vlogs saying, "Oh, this is what you need to live, and this is what this is the, and they've only been here for like 3 to 6 months. You don't have that much of education here in the Philippines to really make a educated vlog on that. You just don't. It took me probably about 2 or 3 years to really see what was going on here, really start understanding things. I'm still learning things even to this day about, everything here. Everything. I learn something every day here. Every time I go out, every time I go to the mall, every time I talk to people, I'm learning something new here. I'm learning everything about budgets, how to save more, how to spend less, things like that. But people out there, they don't get the biggest thing that most people don't figure on is insurance. I hate to harp on that, but health insurance is a big one. Life insurance is another one that you should have, or at least have enough money aside to bury you around, so that if you die, your girlfriend can bury you, or whatever. A lot of times people over here, they pass away or what have you, and what happens is the girl has to take up a collection to bury you, or have you cremated or whatever. A lot of people don't talk about that, and you need, like I always say, the money for when you hit your 70s. You should be saving money. If you're on the sweet spot budget between $2,000 to $3,000, you should be saving a few bucks out of that money. When I say budget, I'm talking about all the money you're getting. Some of that money you should be banking. A lot of people think of the budget as all their household expenses. Part of your household expense should be paying yourself first. Paying yourself first. How much are you going to pay yourself first, so that it'll go into a savings account for your emergency issues. If you, God forbid, something isn't covered in your insurance, or later on when your costs go up so high because you got pre-existing conditions, you have diabetes, you have something else, hypertension or whatever, and your costs start going up, you need to save for that stuff. A lot of people don't plan ahead. They don't plan ahead enough. And that's why I talk about those budgets. Now, are those budgets going to change in the future? Sure they are. The 2 to 3K budget, is going to change sometime. That's the sweet spot budget. And it's going to probably go to, 2.5 to 3.5 to live a good life. Is it still plausible today? Yes, it definitely is. You can still live cheap. You can still save money in certain areas. Can you go down to Dumaguete and live on, some of these budgets? Yeah, you can, if you find, decent housing, but you're not going to live really well. You're probably going to live better in a place like Tracy Martirez or General Trias or Indang or other places in Batangas or out in the provinces or something like that. Where you choose to live is going to make the decision whether you're going to make it or break it. Some guys think they can live almost anywhere here on $1,000 budget. It's not going to happen. Could you do it here? Yes, you could, but it'd be very, very hard, and I don't recommend it. Could you do it out in the province? Yes, you could, but you're not close to any medical facilities and stuff like that you need. Is $1,000 a month a safe place, and as far as income and a budget, a safe place to be? No, it's not. It's an awful place to be, because it's not a great budget. It's not a great amount of income. When you talk about that, it's an awful place to be. It's not living over here. Most people, when they think about retirement, they've looked at people in their family or whatever. A lot of people, I've seen people that are very successful, have very successful retirements. My mom and my stepdad had a very good retirement. They didn't get out and travel much or do things, but they got to do things that they wanted to do. My father had a really good retirement. He lived the way he wanted to. He could help people. He liked staying home most of the time, and he was a successful retiree. Will you be a successful retiree? You know, who knows? But the Dunning-Kruger effect comes in on that, you know. And I tell people, don't believe everything that everybody vlogs out there. Watch different people, and you're going to get different ideas from different people. And when you see people talk about it more and more, then they're probably hitting on the truth more. Now, as far as talking about women, I think a lot of people give a lot of false information out there, and I don't. That's why one reason why I don't like to talk too much about women. It's just because every woman's different, and I don't like lumping all women into one stereotype and saying, yeah, they're all cookie cutter over here. They're not. They're just not. Every single woman over here is different than the next. You know, the girls that you meet online are probably more the same because they're a lot of them are scammers that go on to those sites because they can make money. Because once they figure that they can get a guy to send them money, they make a business out of it. A lot of guys are too stupid to figure that out. When you're sending this girl money, she's probably got 20 other guys that she's talking to. So if she's slow to respond to you, and she's slowly responding to you, and she's waiting a few minutes before answering you, it's because she's texting somebody else too. Remember that. You know, but guys, when you come over here, don't let that Dunning-Kruger effect affect you. Get educated. Make sure you're educated before you start talking about stuff. A lot of guys are just not there as far as the education goes to come over here and start a life on some lowball budget. If you're in the $2,000 to $3,000 area, you can come over here without any worries and you'll live fairly well, provided you come over with some sort of startup fund and an emergency fund. At least $10,000 each, possibly more. And I always recommend more because it can't hurt. You know, in reality, you should be saving to build up that emergency fund even more and more and more because of inflation eating it away. You should be adding something to that every single month of the year. If you're in the $2,000 to $3,000 amount, you know, sweet spot budget, you should be putting $500 a month away if you can, or more if you can, because eventually something's going to happen and you're going to need some health care. Some of it might be health care outside the hospital. Insurances over here only cover things that take place in the hospital unless you buy outpatient too. Most people, when they buy like some of these, like Pacific Cross, they buy the inpatient because the outpatient is so cheap. But every so often you come across something that you can do as an outpatient, but it's still costly. Okay, or maybe you need to go in and get a check. Maybe you need to get your colonoscopy and get your colon checked for cancer. You know, you're supposed to do it every 5 to 10 years. Do it. You know, these are things you got to put away to get checked for. Blood tests, urine tests, you know, all that stuff. Cholesterol, diabetes, creatinine is a big one. A lot of people forget about creatinine. Creatinine's very important over here. These are things that people forget. They think they're so smart, they know everything. But this is why I talk so much about these subjects, because there's so much out there that we forget, especially when it comes to health, the healthcare costs. Even though things are wicked cheap over here, and even those tests are fairly cheap, it runs up. It costs you a lot when you're getting a lot of tests done. Or if you have to take care of your creatinine levels, sometimes you have to start giving up on some of your meds. Maybe you might have to switch to a more expensive med. Anyway, guys, God bless. Take care and stay ahead of that Dunning-Kruger effect, guys. God bless. Take care.